Hi everyone and welcome to the Syncretism Society Virtual Academy, and my name is Mehmet. And in today's video we're going to be carrying on looking at the placements of planets within the birth chart and which houses and which signs particular planets do well in and ones they don't do so well in. And we're going to look at the birth chart and I'll show you why visually as well, rather than just telling you. This is part 2 of a little kind of mini series I'll be doing. If you haven't already checked the first one out, I suggest you do so, where we concentrated on the planets of the Moon, Sun, and Mercury. So they were the first 3 planets we looked at in relation to the birth chart and which signs they do well in and which signs they don't do so well in, and we looked at the houses as well. So in today's lesson we're going to look at Venus, Mars and Jupiter. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get into it. So share. Let me just get this up, make it full screen. Push this up and yeah, that should be okay there. So the first planet we're going to concentrate on is the planet of Venus. As we can see in this chart, Venus rules in the sign of Taurus and in the sign of Libra. And also if I go to this next chart, you can also see that Venus is exalted in Pisces as well. So they're the 3 strongest houses for strongest signs for Venus, should I say. So Venus is strongest in Taurus, Libra and Pisces. And obviously, let me go back to this one, it would be weakest in Scorpio, which is opposite, and it would be its weakest in Aries, which is opposite. So like I've mentioned before, the way to know where the planet's weakest placement is always to look at the opposite signs where it rules and where it's exalted. So for example, Venus rules here in Libra. So if you have Venus in Aries or the first house, that won't be such a good placement, because obviously Venus is about pleasure and love, and it does well in the 7th house or in the sign of Libra, which is about justice and partnerships and marriage. So this is why does well in Libra in the 7th house, because the characteristics of Venus correlate with the characteristics of Libra. But obviously we know that the energy of Aries is very direct and Martian and a bit more malefic. So obviously with the Aries energy, the Venus energy doesn't kind of match. So that's another reason why it doesn't do well. Also because it's opposing its home or its rulership, that's why. But you got to look at kind of matching the energies of the actual planets and the energy of, and with the energy of the sign, and see if there's any like why it doesn't do so well. Like, because like I said, obviously Aries is a more Martian malefic energy, whereas Venus is a more benefic energy. So if you have a benefic place, a benefic planet in a malefic place, obviously those energies clash. So I'm just giving you a bit of background on why they wouldn't do so well in particular signs. So the other sign it wouldn't do so particularly well in particularly well in is the sign of Scorpio. So because obviously it rules in Venus, it rules in Venus rules in Taurus, should I say? Excuse me. And yeah, so because it's opposing the sign of Scorpio, this is another sign where it won't do so well in, because this could make, for example, like the Scorpio and is about the reproductive system and sex and transformation. So having Venus, which is about pleasure and love, it kind of, in this placement of Scorpio, it can deal to things like addiction and lust, basically. So that's why it doesn't do so well there. So yeah, so for example, last week we also spoke about how, for example, you can have like planets in like good houses but bad signs, or good signs and bad houses. So for example, you could have just say, for example, a person could have Venus in Taurus, which would be a good placement because Venus rules in Taurus. But then if you had it in the first house or the eighth house, it wouldn't be such a good placement, because first house things don't correspond with the energy of Venus, they correspond with the energy of Mars. So, and obviously because Mars and Venus are always opposites, when Venus is in a Mars sign or Mars is in a Venus sign, they don't do so well. So for example, yeah, you could have like another one, for example, you could have Venus in the seventh house, but with Aries there. So again, it's kind of good house placement, because obviously Venus is about partnerships. And if you had your Venus in the seventh house, would be good because it's about partnerships. But the way you would be in those partnerships would be very Aryan. And the motto of Aries is I am. It's not really about partnerships, it's more about the self. So then that's where you get like, you can have like different combinations, for example. So when you're looking at your birth chart, you can say, oh, I've got, for example, Venus in the seventh house. That would be great. But then if it was in the sign of Aries, that would kind of, it would take away the shine a bit, if that makes sense. So yeah, so that was a quick, well, it weren't very quick. It was a summary of, obviously you could go into so much detail with this, but I'm just trying to keep it brief. So yeah, so let's just do a quick recap. So the strengths, Venus does well in Taurus, and the second house does well in Libra and the seventh house, and it also does well in the 12th house of and Pisces as well, because like we said, it exalts in Pisces, which means that's where it starts its journey from. So the next planet I'm going to concentrate on is, which I've spoke about a bit while I was talking about the Venus one, is the planet of Mars. So Mars, as you can see here, rules in the sign of Aries and does well in the first house. And it also rules in the sign of Scorpio and does well in the eighth house. And also, if I move to the next diagram, we can see that Mars also exalts in the sign of Capricorn, and which correlates with the 10th house. So the three best positions for Mars are first house Aries, 8th house and Scorpio, and 10th house and Capricorn. So for example, Aries, where Mars rules, is the start of spring, and it's to do with that springing up, going into action. So this is why Mars correlates with Aries in the first house, and the first house is about I am. That is the motto of it. So it's about yourself and springing into action. Also, as we know in medical astrology, Aries is the head and the face, the top part of the face. So, and that is the part of the body that gives you your identity. So that's another reason why the motto of Aries and Mars is I am. So yeah, this is like Aries and Mars connection. That's more of like a spring in and go into action energy, whereas the Mars energy in Scorpio is more about being passionate in relation to transformation and lovemaking and sexuality. So they kind of have two different roles. One more in relation to, I would say, the Aries Mars is more of a spiritual and more kind of theological Mars, whereas the Mars in Scorpio is a bit more emotional and passionate. And so, like I said, it's to do with the sexual part of your body, and Scorpio is to do with occultism and sex and life and death and rebirth. So that goes a lot with this energy. So, like we said before, like I said before, the weakest placements for Mars would be the seventh house, the second house, and the fourth house. And also in these signs as well. So Mars in Taurus is not so good. Mars in Cancer is not so good. And Mars in Libra is not so good. Because like I mentioned in the Libra part, if you have Mars in the seventh house or in Libra, means you will be very Aryan and dominant in your partnerships. But the seventh house energy in Libra is about balance. So that's why that doesn't kind of combine so well. So yeah, again, for example, like in relation to like combinations you could have, for example, you could have Mars in the first house, but in the sign of like Taurus or Venus, it wouldn't be so good. It will be in the right house, but maybe the wrong. You can look at it as the planet is the type of the planet is kind of the personality and relating to a particular thing, and the sign is the way you do that thing. So for example, if you have Mercury in, just say, Aquarius, that means your intellectual capacity and your forms of communication will be Aquarian. So it just, like I always say that astrology is like spiritual mathematics. It's like blending energies and adding energies and see which ones correlate and seeing which ones don't. So yeah, and the final planet that I'm going to talk about today is Jupiter. So from this chart, we can see Jupiter does well in Sagittarius and the ninth house. And it also does well in Pisces and the 12th house. For some of you may not know, or some of you may know, that Jupiter is the archetype of Jesus. So that's why it correlates with Pisces, because of Jesus and the two fish. That most of us would know growing up in relation to like Christianity. And obviously we've been in the age of Pisces for like 2000 years as well. So our kind of knowledge in our early years came through its connection with Pisces and the two fish. But yeah, so like I said, yeah, as we know, Jesus or Jupiter or Zeus is a very mythological figure. It's known as the king of the kings, and it's like the king of all planets. So it's very fitting that it rules in the sign of Sagittarius, which is about higher wisdom, philosophy, religion, dreams, long journeys. So, and yeah, if we know the planet of Jupiter, like I said, it's about wisdom, morality, being jovial, and being helpful. So they all correlate with the characteristics of Jesus. So yeah, that does well in that house, and also in the house of uh, the 12th house, which correlates to the sign of Pisces. Which again, Pisces is also a very kind of dreamy related sign, with Neptune also being there, and it's about the waters and very emotional people. Pisces, on a bad side, they have kind of a deceptive side, or but that's with all signs, by the way. I'm not picking on Pisces. I love Pisces people. I have so many amazing Pisces friends, but like each sign has its good and bad. I'm just kind of trying to give you a few clues and stuff. So yeah, so also not to forget, Jupiter exalts in the sign of Cancer as well. So that's another good placement for the sign of Jupiter. So the best houses would be 4, 9, and 12. And the best signs for Jupiter are Cancer, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Yeah, so obviously the weak signs for Jupiter will be in Virgo and in Gemini and in Capricorn. Yeah, because obviously Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and obviously we know this kind of it's kind of the myth of like Saturn castrating his father, then Jupiter castrated his father, which was Saturn. And also this plays into the whole, like, Saturn is like an archetype of Joseph. And yeah, we know that Joseph was like Jesus' foster father in the Christian mythology. So there's always this kind of battle between Jesus and Satan, or yeah, there's like the twin brothers that don't get on, like Horus and Set in the Egyptian mythology. But yeah, so uh, Jupiter Jupiter doesn't do so well in Capricorn, because that's where obviously he gets crucified as well. So yeah, I mean, what else? So yeah, obviously having Jupiter in the 9th house or the sign of Sagittarius is a big bonus, or in the 12th house or in the sign of Pisces. My Jupiter is in Sagittarius, makes me a very yeah, as you can see, I'm into philosophy, wisdom, higher learning, religion, astrotheology. So also Jupiter in the chart corresponds with what you have abundance in, or what comes easy to you. So wherever you have Jupiter is what you have abundance in. So me having Jupiter in Sagittarius means I'm abundant in that type of philosophical, religious, theological wisdom. Also, just to go back to the other two planets, so obviously Mars would be how you take action. So wherever your Mars would be is your mind state of taking action. So for example, in my case, my Mars is in Libra, which is a weak placement, because obviously its ruling house is Aries, which is opposite. So Mars in Libra is a weak placement for me. Mars is the action and the fighter, whereas Libra is the balancer. So people with Mars in Libra are kind of known to be quite diplomatic and try and play the middleman rather than being the aggressor. And yeah, Venus, like I said, was about pleasure and love, and also like what you find leisure in as well. And yeah, like I said, Jupiter about wisdom and philosophy and morality and being jovial and stuff like that. So yeah, I've wrapped that up for this week. So this week we did uh, Mars, Venus, and Jupiter, and then I think I'll finish off with one final episode in relation to planets in the birth chart. and we'll look at Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all in one video. So I'll stop sharing my screen. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Like I always say, if you ever have any questions, feel free to inbox me via the Syncretism Society Virtual Academy, and I'll get back to you straight away. And yeah, also, if you would like a private lesson, or you would just like a one-on-one that where we could go through anything specific, you can also do that. If you go to the services section on the site, you can book a reading with us as well. So I'll catch you guys soon. Peace, love, and blessings. I'm out. Peace.